Welcome to our explainer on one of the most intense, multi-layered decision-making processes in human history. We're journeying back to the summer of 1945, a moment where the entire world stood on a knife's edge. Now, often when we look back at the events leading to the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, we kind of view them through this lens of historical inevitability, like the outcome was just pre-written. But history is rarely a straight line, right? It's a living, breathing collision of individual decisions, scientific limits, political pressures, and even linguistic accidents. So today, we're going to reconstruct that past, step by step, using the documents, decisions, and data from the very people who lived it. Let's dive in.
So, was the devastation of Hiroshima an inevitable outcome of war? I want you to really immerse yourself in the profound uncertainty of this exact moment. The war in Europe has just ended, but the Pacific War is still raging. Leaders are absolutely desperate to end the daily death toll. But the thing is, the outcomes are completely unknown. The risks are monumental, and the stakes are quite literally the future of human civilization. We're going to look at the exact, intricate forces that made August 6, 1945 a reality.
To really understand the gravity of these choices, we first have to confront their result. Just listen to this chilling quote from Colonel Paul W. Tibbets, Jr., the commander of the Enola Gay. He said, "A giant purple mushroom had already risen to a height of 45,000 feet, boiling upward like something terribly alive." That is the terrifying cinematic scale of what the Manhattan Project actually birthed. To understand how we arrived at that precise moment in the sky, we have to break down the specific forces that made it happen.
Section 1. The Mechanics of Destruction, Mathematical Certainties, and Untested Theories.
You know, the United States actually developed two vastly different atomic devices, and this was driven entirely by material scarcity and some major engineering dead ends. Scientists at the top-secret Los Alamos laboratory originally pursued a plutonium design known as Thin Man, but it faced unworkable challenges. Unwilling to waste the massive amount of time and money spent producing plutonium, they frantically shifted to a highly complex implosion design, which became Fat Man. But Little Boy, well, it was a simpler gun-type fission weapon. Because enriching uranium-235 was incredibly difficult back then, they only had enough material for one single bomb. A full-scale test was literally impossible. Yet the physics were so elegantly brutal, they considered its success an absolute mathematical certainty.
And this weapon was a physical behemoth. Little Boy weighed a staggering 9,700 pounds. It was 10 feet long, packed tightly into a steel casing, and inside, it held 64 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. What's truly haunting about the physics here is that when this massive weapon actually detonated, less than 1 single kilogram of that uranium underwent nuclear fission. A fraction of a gram of mass was converted into energy, but that tiny, microscopic fraction unleashed an explosion equal to 15,000 tons of TNT.
With the weapon now a physical reality, the question quickly became where to unleash it. Section 2. The Calculus of Target Selection, Geography, Psychology, and Destruction.
This shift in strategy represents a monumental change in the nature of warfare. In May 1945, Secretary of War Henry Stimson created the Interim Committee, and notably, this was composed mostly of civilians, not military generals. Their job was to advise President Truman on nuclear energy. They, along with the Target Committee, agreed that the atomic bomb should be used against Japan at the absolute earliest opportunity. They wanted a dual target, military installations surrounded by civilian buildings, and they decided on doing this without any special warning. The paramount goal here was psychological. They wanted to completely shock Japan into surrender.
The criteria for picking these targets were incredibly specific, and honestly, chilling. The city had to be larger than 3 miles in diameter. It had to have the potential to focus blast damage. And most hauntingly, the target had to be virtually untouched by previous conventional bombing raids. The military specifically spared cities like Hiroshima, Yokohama, Kokura, and Niigata from the devastating firebombing campaigns that were incinerating other Japanese cities at the time. Why? Because they wanted a pristine urban laboratory. They needed to accurately measure the unadulterated destructive power of this terrifying new weapon.
Just look at the grim geography of Hiroshima. Interestingly, Kyoto was initially a primary target because it was a major intellectual center, but Secretary Stimson personally stepped in and removed it to save its cultural heritage. Hiroshima, however, was an important army depot and a port of embarkation. But more than that, the city was built on a flat delta completely enclosed by hills. The committee mathematically projected that these hills would produce a focusing effect, basically channeling the blast wave inward to maximize structural damage. Ultimately, geography sealed its fate.
But while politicians and generals finalized these targets, a frantic resistance was brewing among the very creators of the bomb. Section 3. The Secret Scientific Rebellion, the moral friction of the Met Lab.
This moral friction built into a desperate ticking clock. Many scientists, like Leo Szilard, originally built the bomb strictly to defend against Nazi Germany. With Germany defeated, using it as an offensive weapon against Japan felt deeply unethical to them. On May 31st, the Interim Committee advised immediate military use. By June 11th, scientists at the Chicago Metallurgical Lab frantically issued what's known as the Frank Report, desperately trying to intercept the military momentum. Just days later, on June 16th, a scientific advisory panel flat-out rejected the scientists' pleas. And on June 21st, the Interim Committee officially reaffirmed direct military use.
The Frank Report, which was written primarily by Eugene Rabinowitz and championed by James Frank and Leo Szilard, was amazingly prophetic. Listen to this line. If the United States would be the first to release this new means of indiscriminate destruction, she would sacrifice public support throughout the world. You see, they weren't just worried about Japan. They were actively warning of an unstoppable, catastrophic post-war nuclear arms race. They begged the government to invite United Nations representatives to a barren island or a desert and just demonstrate the bomb's power there, instead of dropping it on a populated city. But their voices went unheard.
So, the bomb is built, the target is chosen, the rebellion is suppressed. Now we enter the realm of diplomatic tragedy. Section 4. The word that sealed fate, a collision of culture and politics. On July 26, the Allies issued the Potsdam Declaration, fiercely demanding Japan's unconditional surrender or face prompt and utter destruction. When asked for his response, Japanese Prime Minister Kantaro Suzuki used the word mokusatsu. Now, Japanese is a language of profound context, and mokusatsu has dual meanings. It can mean to withhold comment, essentially a diplomatic way of saying no comment right now, but it can also mean to treat with silent contempt or to ignore.
This single word illustrates a catastrophic tragedy of miscommunication. Suzuki was in an impossible position. He needed to appease the extreme, hardline Japanese military, who completely opposed surrender, while simultaneously trying to buy time to open diplomatic back channels with Moscow. He almost certainly meant withhold comment. However, the Domei news agency translated the word for the international wires as ignore. The Western world received this as a flat, defiant rejection. To Allied leaders who were totally impatient and exhausted by years of war, this translation gave them the ultimate justification. In the words of Secretary Stimson, they felt they had no other way to demonstrate their ultimatum. The order was given.
The forces of physics, geography, politics, and language have now completely converged. Section 5. 0 hour, August 6, 1945.
The mechanical sequence was flawless, and it was unstoppable. The B-29 superfortress, the Enola Gay, piloted by Colonel Paul Tibbets, departed Tinian Island. In the bomb bay was Little Boy. At 8:15 a.m., the weapon was dropped. Inside the bomb, 4 bags of cordite powder fired a hollow subcritical mass of uranium down a 72-inch smoothbore gun barrel, slamming into a solid target cylinder. A supercritical mass was instantly formed. Less than a kilogram of that uranium fissioned, but it triggered a devastating 15-kiloton nuclear chain reaction in the sky above Hiroshima.
The sensory reality of that moment just completely defies human comprehension. The crew of the Enola Gay watched as the massive blast wave actually chased their aircraft. They described looking down at a beautiful fan-shaped city of 550,000 people and seeing it instantly erased. As one crew member described, fires sprang up amid the turbulent mass of smoke that looked like bubbling hot tar. He said the city we had seen so clearly in the sunlight a few minutes before was now an ugly smudge.
Ultimately, history is not simply a list of dates to memorize. It is a complex tapestry of human ambition, fatal errors, and profound moral choices. The devastation of Hiroshima was the result of incredibly complex forces converging at a precise, inescapable moment in time. By truly understanding the accidents, the untranslated words, the scientific push, and the geographic targeting that led to that flashing instant, we really have to ask ourselves, what lessons must we carry into the modern nuclear age? We now live in a world absolutely surrounded by the descendants of Little Boy and Fat Man. Understanding how they were first used isn't just about knowing our past. It's absolutely crucial for safeguarding our future. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this leaves you seeking a deeper understanding of the forces that continue to shape our world.